The silver chains bit into my wrists as 2 guards shoved me to my knees before Alpha Dominic Steele's throne. "Mira Collins," Dominic's voice boomed through the pack hall. "You stand accused of stealing Wolfsbane antidote from the pack's medical vault, medicine worth more than your pathetic life. How do you plead?" I kept my head down, Omega instinct screaming at me to submit, to beg. But I wouldn't. Not for this. "I took it to save a child," I said quietly. "Little Emma Ross was dying from accidental poisoning. Her family couldn't afford treatment. I couldn't let her die." "So you admit to theft?" Dominic leaned forward, his alpha aura pressing down like a physical weight. "The penalty is death." Murmurs rippled through the assembled pack members. Some faces showed pity, most showed nothing, just another Omega learning her place. "I saved a child's life," I repeated, meeting his eyes for the first time. "Dangerous, but I was dead anyway. If that's worth dying for, then I die with a clear conscience." "How noble," Dominic sneered. "Execute her." The guards hauled me upright. One drew a silver blade, quick at least. I thought of Emma, alive and laughing yesterday when I'd checked on her. Worth it. The blade rose. "Release her, now!" The command didn't come from Dominic. It came from everywhere and nowhere, a voice that resonated with power so absolute that every wolf in the hall, including the Alpha, froze instantly. A figure emerged from the shadows near the back entrance, and the crowd parted like water before a shark. He was massive, easily 6'5", with shoulders that could carry the weight of kingdoms. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples. Eyes like molten gold that swept the room with predatory focus. He wore black, simple but clearly expensive, and moved with the fluid grace of a born killer. The most powerful alpha in North America, maybe the world, hadn't been seen in 15 years. Until now. "Alpha King Kieran," Dominic stammered, dropping from his throne to one knee. The entire pack followed, foreheads nearly touching the floor. "Before we continue, I'd like to know who's watching this at night and who in the morning. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you enjoyed the story, give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one." I tried to kneel too, but the guard still held me. Kieran's golden gaze locked on me, and something flickered in those ancient eyes. Recognition? Impossible. I'd never met him. "I said, release her!" Each word dropped like a stone into still water. The guards let go so fast I nearly fell. Kieran crossed the space between us in 3 strides, catching my arm with surprising gentleness. His touch sent electricity racing up my skin. Not the mate bond, something else. Something that made my wolf stir in confusion. "She saved my life," Kieran announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "This woman is under my protection." The silence was deafening. "My king." Dominic's face had gone purple. "With respect, she's a thief. She stole valuable medicine that belonged to me." Kieran cut him off with casual authority. "I lent it to your pack for emergencies. She used it for an emergency. Or would you prefer I reclaim all my loans to Steel Pack? Your defenses, your weapons, your territory rights?" Dominic's jaw worked soundlessly. "That's what I thought." Kieran turned back to me. "You're Mira Collins?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. Up close he was devastating, beautiful in the way winter storms are beautiful, deadly and magnetic. "You'll return with me to the royal pack," he said. It wasn't a question. "Repayment for your kindness long overdue." "My king, I don't understand." "You will." His hand moved to my throat and I flinched, but he only touched the pendant I wore, the silver crescent moon I'd had since childhood. His fingers were gentle. "You still have it." My mother's pendant, the only thing I had left of her. Except it wasn't my mother's, was it? A memory surfaced, hazy and dreamlike, a dying black wolf with golden eyes, blood matting his fur. My 8-year-old hands offering water in a stolen bowl. "It was you," I whispered. Something that might have been a smile ghosted across his severe features. It was. 15 years ago. I found him in the hollow tree where I went to escape my father's rages. A massive black wolf, beautiful even half dead. Silver burns covered his body, the poison spreading through his veins in dark veins. "Don't be afraid," I whispered, though my heart hammered. Wolves this big were dangerous, but his golden eyes held such pain, such desperate intelligence. For 7 days I came, bringing food I stole from our sparse pantry, water from the stream, and finally the medicine my dead mother had left behind, the expensive kind I was never supposed to touch. I went hungry those 7 days. My father noticed, beat me for it. I didn't care. On the 7th day, the wolf was strong enough to stand. He looked at me with those impossible gold eyes, and I swear I saw gratitude, human understanding. He dropped something at my feet, a silver pendant, warm as if he'd carried it in his mouth for miles. Then he vanished into the forest. I never saw him again. "You were dying," I said, back in the present. "Silver poisoning. I thought you were just a wolf." "I was dying," Kieran confirmed. "You saved me when you had nothing, when saving me cost you dearly." He'd seen the scars then, the ones on my back from my father's belt. "It was nothing," I said automatically. "It was everything." His voice dropped, intimate despite the audience. "And now I've come to repay the debt." Dominic looked like he'd swallowed a lemon, but he couldn't protest. "Not against the Alpha King." "When will you be leaving, my king?" "Now." Kieran kept his hand on my arm, possessive. "Have her belongings sent to the royal pack." "I don't have belongings," I said quietly. Something dangerous flashed in Kieran's eyes. "Of course you don't." As he guided me toward the exit, a man appeared beside us, nearly as tall as Kieran, with cold gray eyes and a jagged scar across his jaw. His second in command, judging by his bearing. "Mira Collins," the man said as we walked, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "A word of warning. The Alpha King isn't what you think. That pendant you wear? It's not a gift. It's a tracking device. He's been watching you for 15 years. Ice slid down my spine. "What?" But the man had already fallen back, his expression neutral. I glanced at Kieran's profile, all sharp angles and controlled power. Had he really been watching me? Why? What could an Alpha King possibly want with a worthless Omega healer? The SUV waiting outside was black and sleek. Kieran opened the door himself, a courtesy that should have been comforting but only heightened my unease. As we pulled away from the pack house, from the only home I'd ever known, Kieran finally spoke. "You don't remember everything about those 7 days, do you?" My head exploded with pain. Images flashed behind my eyes, not memories but fragments, pieces of something that had been broken and hidden away. A child's voice, frightened. "Don't let them find me, please." My own voice, young and fierce. "I promise, I won't let anyone hurt you." Blood in the snow. So much blood. My mother's face. Tears streaming. "Forget, baby. You have to forget." Light, blinding silver light, and then nothing. I gasped, clutching my head. The pendant at my throat had gone ice cold, almost burning. What was that?" Kieran's jaw tightened. "Memories your mother locked away. To protect you." "My mother's been dead for 15 years. "I know." His golden eyes met mine, ancient and sad. "I was there when she died." The world tilted. "The pendant isn't tracking you," Kieran continued softly. "It's protecting you, hiding you from people who would kill you if they knew what you really are. I'm an Omega healer. There's nothing special about me." You're so much more than that, Mira. He reached out, his fingers brushing the pendant again, and soon you'll remember. Everything. The promise in his voice was equal parts comfort and threat. As the Royal Pack territory rose in the distance, a fortress of stone and steel, I touched the pendant with shaking fingers. I promise, my child self had said, but what had I promised? And to whom? The Alpha King beside me knew the answers. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear them. Chapter 2. The Hidden Truth. The Royal Pack's fortress was nothing like Steel Pack's modest territory. Ancient stone walls rose from the mountainside, topped with silver spikes that gleamed in the moonlight. Warriors patrolled in coordinated units, their movements precise and deadly. This wasn't just a pack, it was an army. Kieran led me through corridors lined with tapestries depicting wolves and battles, history woven into fabric. His second-in-command, Marcus, I'd learned, trailed behind us, his scarred face unreadable. "Your quarters?" Kieran said, opening massive oak doors. The room was larger than my entire previous home. A four-poster bed dominated the space, draped in midnight blue silk. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the forest, and a fire crackled in a stone fireplace that could have roasted a whole deer. "This is too much." "It's barely enough." Kieran's voice was rough. "Marcus, leave us." The beta's gray eyes flickered with something, concern, warning, before he bowed and departed. Alone with the Alpha King, I became acutely aware of how small I was, how powerless. My Omega Wolf whimpered, urging submission. But something else stirred beneath it, something that didn't want to submit at all. "Sit," Kieran said, gesturing to chairs by the fire. "We need to talk." I sat, my fingers automatically finding the pendant at my throat. Kieran settled across from me, and for a moment he just studied me with those ancient gold eyes. "What do you know about the ancient bloodline?" he asked finally. "Just stories. The first werewolves, blessed directly by the moon goddess. They could command any wolf, regardless of rank, but they died out centuries ago." "Not all of them." Kieran leaned forward, firelight dancing across his severe features. "I'm the last, and there are wolves who would do anything to ensure the bloodline dies with me." The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so tired, made my chest ache. "The Shadow Council," I said, remembering fragments from my fragmented dreams. "They poisoned you." 15 years ago, yes. I was young, newly crowned, and arrogant. I thought I could meet with them. Negotiate peace. His jaw tightened. Instead, they served me wine laced with liquid silver, enough to kill any wolf within hours. But you survived. Because an 8-year-old girl found me dying in the woods and refused to let me go. His eyes locked on mine. "You saved the last of the ancient bloodline, Mira. Do you understand what that means?" I shook my head, though something deep in my bones stirred in recognition. Kieran stood, moving to the window. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. "Your mother, Mira Collins, wasn't just a pack healer. She was my sentinel, a royal guardian from a bloodline as ancient as my own. Sentinels are born to protect the Alpha King, bonded to us through magic older than written history." The room tilted. "That's impossible. My mother was Omega, weak." "My father said..." "Your father was a fool who couldn't recognize power when it slept beside him." Kieran turned, and the raw anger in his face made me flinch. "Vera was one of the strongest wolves I've ever known. The council knew it too. That's why they targeted her." My hands shook. "You're saying my mother was some kind of ancient warrior? That's insane." "Is it?" He crossed to me, kneeling, so we were eye level. "When you found me in those woods, did you feel fear?" "Really?" I opened my mouth to say yes, closed it, because the truth was, no. I'd felt drawn to him, compelled, like some part of me recognized him on a level deeper than conscious thought. "The pendant," I whispered. Your mother gave it to you the night she died. It's forged from Sentinel silver, keyed to your bloodline. It's been suppressing your true nature, hiding you from the council's sight." He reached toward the pendant but didn't touch it. "She used forbidden memory magic to make you forget. Forget what you really are. Forget that night. Forget me. To keep you safe." "Safe from what?" "From becoming exactly what you were born to be." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "A sentinel wolf. My sentinel." The pendant suddenly felt like a burning brand against my skin. "I don't understand. If she wanted me safe, why lead me to you that night? Why make me save you?" "Because the bond between Sentinel and King forms in childhood, in moments of pure instinct and loyalty. She was dying, Mira. The Council's assassins had already struck. Her last act was to bring you to me, to forge the bond that would one day protect us both, and then to hide you until you were strong enough to survive what comes next." Tears blurred my vision. "She died protecting you." "Yes." The single word carried 15 years of guilt. "And you let me live as an Omega? Abused, starving, beaten?" Anger ignited in my chest. "You watched me through this tracking device and did nothing?" "It's not a tracking device. Your beta said—" "Marcus warned you because he doesn't know the whole truth. No one does except me." Kieran's hands clenched into fists. "I stayed away because seeing you again would trigger the bond before you were ready. Sentinel bonds are intense, overwhelming. If it had activated while you were still a child, it would have killed you. I had to wait until you were strong enough to survive the awakening. So you let me suffer instead. Yes, no justification, no excuse, just brutal honesty. Every day for 15 years, I felt your pain through the pendant's echo. Every beating, every humiliation, every moment you went hungry. And I did nothing because intervening would have revealed you to the Council. They would have killed you, Mira, the way they killed your mother." I stood abruptly, needing distance. "Why now? Why come for me today?" "Because they found you." He stood too, and the Alpha King's power rolled off him in waves. "Dominic Steele has been reporting to the Council for months. When you stole that medicine, when you drew attention to yourself, they took notice. That execution wasn't about justice, it was an assassination order." Ice flooded my veins. "They wanted me dead. They wanted you exposed. If you'd died as a thief, no one would have questioned it. If you'd shifted to defend yourself, they'd have seen your true nature and struck." His eyes blazed gold. "I couldn't let either happen. So what now?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "What am I supposed to do?" "Now, we remove the pendant." Kieran moved closer, predatory grace in every step. "Now, you become what you were always meant to be." "And if I don't want this?" But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. The thing stirring inside me, the power I'd felt my whole life but never understood, it wanted out. "Then the Council wins," Kieran said simply. "They'll kill me, consolidate power, and rule through corruption and fear. Everything your mother died for will be meaningless." He was close now, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. This close, the pendant thrummed against my chest, resonating with something in him. "She made me promise," I whispered, fragments of memory surfacing. "The night she died, she said, 'Protect him, no matter what. Promise me.' And I did. I know." Kieran's hand rose slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers closed around the pendant. "Are you ready to keep that promise?" Was I? Ready to become something other than the Omega I'd been taught to be? Ready to face whatever power had been sleeping inside me for 15 years? I thought of my mother, not the weak woman my father described, but a warrior who'd died protecting a king. I thought of little Emma Ross, alive because I'd refused to let her die. I thought of every moment I'd been beaten down and gotten back up. "Do it," I said. The pendant came off in one smooth motion. Power detonated through me like lightning through water. My wolf surged forward, not the small, cowering Omega I'd known, but something massive and primal. White light exploded from my skin, and I heard myself scream as 15 years of suppressed power erupted all at once. Kieran caught me as my legs gave out, his strength the only thing keeping me upright. Through the blinding agony of transformation, I felt it, the bond he'd spoken of, snapping into place like a lock finding its key. Our souls intertwined, two pieces of an ancient whole finally reunited. Mine. My wolf snarled, not with romance, but with absolute certainty. Ours to protect, ours to guard, ours. When the light faded, I was shaking in Kieran's arms. But I wasn't weak. I could feel the difference, strength thrumming through muscles that had never known real power, senses sharpening to supernatural clarity, and beneath it all, an unshakable connection to the man holding me. "I can feel you," I gasped. "Your heartbeat, your emotions, everything." The Sentinel bond. Kieran's voice was rough. "You feel what I feel. You'll know when I'm in danger, when I need you, and I'll feel the same." I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. They were blazing gold, his wolf recognizing mine. "Why did you really stay away?" His jaw tightened. "Because you were a child. And because I'm not a good man, Mira. I'm ruthless and cold, and I've done terrible things in the name of survival. You deserved better than to be shackled to me before you had a choice. And now? Now the council knows you're alive. They're coming." He cupped my face, and the gesture was far too intimate for a king and his guard. "I won't let them take you like they took your mother. I swear it." The sincerity in his voice, the fierce protectiveness, it should have frightened me. Instead, my new wolf preened. "Then we fight," I said. A knock shattered the moment. Marcus burst through the door without waiting for permission, his face grim. "My king, we have a situation." He stopped dead, staring at me, specifically at my eyes, which I realized were probably glowing with sentinel power. "She awakened," Marcus breathed. "By the goddess, she actually awakened." "Tell me," Kieran commanded. "Perimeter breach. Eastern sector. The intruder got past our patrols. Professional. Fast. We've locked down your wing, but—" Glass shattered. A figure crashed through the window in a shower of crystal, landing in a crouch between us and the door. Dark clothes. Face hidden by a hood, but the killing intent was unmistakable. My body moved on instinct. I shoved Kieran aside and met the attacker mid-strike, my newly awakened strength catching the blade meant for the king's throat. White light blazed from my hands where I gripped the silver knife, burning through the leather gloves. The assassin hissed and pulled back. I pursued, my wolf howling for blood. We exchanged blows, fast, brutal, efficient. They were good, but I was better. The sentinel power guided my movements, centuries of genetic memory awakening with each strike. I caught their wrist, twisted, and used their momentum to slam them into the stone wall. The impact cracked mortar. The hood fell back. Alpha Dominic Steele grinned at me, blood trickling from his split lip. "Surprise," he said. Then laughed as Kieran and Marcus closed in. "The council sends their regards, little Omega. Or should I say, little Sentinel?" His eyes glittered with malice. "They're very excited to meet you, almost as excited as they were to meet your mother." "You're working for them," I snarled. "Everyone works for them, sweetheart. They own half the alphas in North America." He spat blood. "But here's the fun part. Want to know what really happened the night Mira Collins died?" Kieran went utterly still. "Ask your precious king," Dominic continued. "Ask him about the trap his bodyguard warned him not to walk into. Ask him how his arrogance got the greatest sentinel of our age killed." His smile was vicious. "He's not the hero you think, little girl. He's the reason your mother's dead." Then silver smoke erupted from his skin. Escape magic. Expensive and rare. By the time the smoke cleared, Dominic was gone, leaving only bloodstains and shattered glass. And me, staring at Kieran with my newly awakened sentinel senses, screaming one terrible truth. Dominic wasn't lying. Chapter 3. Betrayal and Blood. The sentinel bond didn't lie. I could feel Kieran's guilt like acid in my veins. 15 years of it, festering and raw. Through our connection, emotions bled between us. His shame, his self-loathing, his desperate wish to deny what Dominic had said. But he couldn't, because it was true. Tell me. My voice came out flat, deadly calm. The white light still flickered around my hands, sentinel power responding to my rage. Tell me what really happened. Marcus moved toward the door. My king. We need to secure the perimeter. Stay. Kieran's command froze his beta mid-step. His golden eyes never left mine. She deserves the truth. Kieran, I said stay. The Alpha King's power rippled through the room, and even Marcus, scarred, battle-hardened Marcus, flinched. Kieran turned back to me, and the naked pain on his face almost made me regret asking. Almost. Your mother warned me, he said quietly. The night she died, she'd received intelligence that the Shadow Council was meeting in the neutral zone. She said it was a trap, that they wanted me to come, that we should send scouts first. His hands clenched into fists. I didn't listen. I was 23, newly crowned, and convinced I was untouchable. I thought I could negotiate, that my ancient bloodline made me invincible. The bond let me feel his shame like a physical blow. Vera begged me not to go. When I refused, she came with me, her and 5 of our best warriors. The moment we crossed into the neutral zone, they struck. His voice went hollow. Silver nets from above, wolfsbane gas, crossbow bolts. They'd planned for everything. I watched him, this powerful king, crumble under the weight of memory. The warriors died in the first 30 seconds. Your mother fought like a demon, killed 8 of them herself while I was tangled in silver. But there were too many. He met my eyes, and I saw the moment replaying in his. The leader, Madame Sable, gave Vera a choice. Surrender me or watch me die slowly. Vera laughed in her face and told her to go to hell. My chest ached. They shot her. 17 arrows, each one laced with silver and wolfsbane. She fell, and He swallowed hard. I watched her die while I hung helpless in their nets. She looked at me as the life left her eyes and said, "Don't let them win. Promise me." "And then?" I whispered. Then they left me there, dying from silver poisoning, confident I'd be dead by morning. They didn't count on an 8-year-old girl finding me. They didn't count on you. His voice broke. Your mother died because I was an arrogant fool who thought he knew better. She died protecting me from my own stupidity. The truth sat between us like a corpse. Through the bond, I felt everything he'd been carrying, guilt so profound it had shaped 15 years of his life, regret that ate at him daily, and beneath it all, a desperate plea for understanding he'd never allow himself to voice. You've lived with this for 15 years, I said slowly. Every day, every moment you suffered, every time I felt your pain through the pendant and couldn't help, that was my punishment, watching Vera's daughter endure what she never should have, knowing I caused it all. I wanted to rage at him, to hate him, but the Sentinel bond wouldn't let me lie to myself. He'd already punished himself more than I ever could. My mother made her choice, I said finally. She chose to protect you. She chose to forge our bond, and she chose to hide me, knowing one day I'd come back to finish what she started. I stepped closer, watching him tense. Don't dishonor her sacrifice by wallowing in guilt. She didn't die for nothing. She died believing you'd be a king worth protecting. I watched your mother die because I thought I knew better, Kieran said, his voice raw. I won't make that mistake with you. Before I could respond, alarms shrieked through the fortress. Marcus's face went white. "They're here!" "How many?" Kieran demanded. "All of them." Marcus was already moving toward the door. "The entire Shadow Council, plus their allied packs. 200 wolves, maybe more." The floor beneath us trembled with the impact of battering rams hitting the outer gates. Kieran's alpha power exploded outward, his voice carrying through the entire fortress. "Royal Pack, to arms!" The next 20 minutes were chaos incarnate. Warriors flooded the corridors, arming themselves with silver weapons and tactical gear. I followed Kieran to the war room, my sentinel instincts screaming warnings with every step. Through windows, I could see wolves flooding the perimeter. Too many, too organized. "They've been planning this for months," Marcus said, pulling up security feeds. "Look, they know exactly where our weak points are." Kieran's face went deadly calm. "We have a traitor." "My king, how else would they know our patrol schedules, our defensive positions?" Kieran turned to his beta, and something terrible flickered in his golden eyes. "How else would they know tonight was the night Mira's sentinel powers awakened?" Marcus froze. "You." The word dropped like a guillotine blade. "Your Shadow Council." "Kieran, I can explain." "How long?" The Alpha King's roar shook the stone walls. Marcus's face crumbled. "Since the beginning. Since before your father died. They have my sister, Kieran. They've had her for 20 years. If I don't cooperate, they'll kill her." The betrayal hit Kieran like a physical blow. I felt it through the bond, the last person he'd truly trusted, bought and paid for by his enemies. "You sold out your king for a sister who's probably already dead," Kieran said softly, and the quiet fury was more terrifying than any shout. "She's alive! They send me proof every month!" An explosion rocked the eastern wall. Through the window, I watched the fortress's outer defenses crumble under magical assault. Wolves poured through the breach, and at their head strode a woman who radiated power like a dark sun. Madame Sable, leader of the Shadow Council. "She's here for you," Marcus whispered. "For both of you. Your ancient bloodline and Mira's sentinel power. Together. You're the only thing strong enough to destroy them. That's why they've waited. They needed you bonded, so killing you would be easier." "How thoughtful," I said, white light already gathering around my hands. Kieran grabbed weapons, twin blades forged from ancient silver. "Marcus, you have one chance to make this right. Help us survive, and maybe I'll let you live long enough to find your sister." Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his scarred face. The battle that followed was brutal. Shadow Council wolves tore through the fortress, and despite the Royal Pack's skill, we were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. They'd known every defensive strategy, every fallback position. Marcus's betrayal had doomed us. I fought beside Kieran, our bond making us a devastating team. Where he struck, I defended. Where I attacked, he covered. The sentinel power flowing through me was intoxicating. I was faster, stronger, more lethal than I'd ever imagined possible, but it wasn't enough. We were pushed back floor by floor until we made our final stand in the Great Hall. 30 Royal Pack warriors remained, surrounded by 100 council wolves, and in the center of it all stood Madame Sable. She was beautiful in the way poisonous things are beautiful, ageless features, silver hair, eyes like chips of ice. Dark magic swirled around her like living smoke. "Alpha King Kieran Thorne," she said, her voice honey over steel. "And the little sentinel, how delightful that you finally bonded. It makes this so much easier." "If you want me, come and get me," Kieran snarled. "Oh, I will. But first—" Madame Sable gestured, and Council Wolves dragged forward a group of captives. Children, at least 20 of them, ranging from toddlers to teenagers, pack members' sons and daughters, eyes wide with terror. My heart stopped. "Here's my offer, little sentinel. Madame Sable continued. "Surrender yourself, right now, willingly, and I'll spare the royal pack. We'll take what we need from you and leave the rest to rebuild their pathetic lives." Her smile was poisonous. "Refuse, and I'll slaughter every child in this room while you watch. Then the adults. Then I'll take you anyway, broken and traumatized." "Don't you dare!" Kieran growled at me through the bond. "Mira, I'm ordering you—" But I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at a little girl, maybe 7 years old, with dark hair and terrified eyes. She looked exactly like I had at 8, hiding in that hollow tree, alone and afraid. "If I surrender, you'll let them go?" I asked. "Mira, no." "You have my word," Madame Sable purred. Through the bond, I felt Kieran's absolute fury, his terror, his desperate need to protect me. But I also felt something else, the memory of my mother's last words, filtered through his guilt. "Don't let them win. Promise me." I'd promised my mother I'd protect Kieran, but I'd also promised myself I'd never let another child suffer the way I had. "I accept," I said. Kieran's roar of denial shook the hall, but his own warriors held him back, wounded, desperate, knowing this was the only way any of them survived. Shadow Council wolves surrounded me, clapping silver manacles on my wrists and ankles. The metal burned, suppressing my sentinel power. Madame Sable approached, running one cold finger down my cheek. "Such a brave little hero," she mocked. I looked past her to Kieran, who fought against his own wolves like a caged animal, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. Before we continue, I'd like to know, who's watching this at night and who in the morning? Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you enjoyed the story, give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Through our bond, I whispered, "I kept my promise. I didn't let them find you. Now keep yours. Survive." His response was anguish incarnate. "I'll come for you. I swear it." "I know." As they dragged me toward the shattered doors, I took one last look at the Great Hall, at the children huddled together, alive because I'd chosen their lives over my freedom, at warriors who'd fought bravely but couldn't fight fate, at Marcus, sobbing over his betrayal, and at Kieran, the last of the ancient bloodline, watching me disappear with murder in his golden eyes. The pendant's absence left me vulnerable, but it had done its job. 15 years of stored power hummed beneath my skin, just waiting for the right moment. They thought they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. The council's dungeon was exactly what I'd expected. Stone walls, silver chains, and the stench of old blood and despair. Madame Sable had me strung up in the center of a ritual circle, dark magic symbols carved into the floor. Other council members gathered around, their faces eager and cruel. "The ancient bloodline and sentinel power," Madame Sable said, circling me like a shark. "Separately, you're dangerous. Together bonded, you're unstoppable. That's why we had to separate you. That's why we'll drain your power. Kill you slowly and use your death to break the Alpha King's will. Then we'll take his bloodline too." "You talk too much," I said. She backhanded me hard enough to split my lip. "You won't be so brave when we begin the extraction. It's excruciatingly painful. It'll take days for you to die, screaming every moment." "I've survived worse." "Have you?" Madame Sable leaned close. "Have you survived learning your mother's alive?" The world stopped. "That's right," she continued, seeing my shock. "Mira Collins didn't die in that ambush. Or rather, she did, but we brought her back. Blood magic, very expensive, very permanent. She's been ours for 15 years. "You're lying," I whispered. "Am I?" Madame Sable gestured to the shadows. "Tell her, Vera." A figure stepped into the dim light and my heart shattered. She was older, marked by scars and suffering, but unmistakably my mother. The same dark hair, now streaked with gray. The same eyes, now haunted by unspeakable things. "Hello, daughter," Mira Collins said in a voice like broken glass. "Let me explain how you're going to help us kill the Alpha King." Chapter 4. The Luna Sentinel's Reckoning. My mother's face swam before me, older and carved with suffering but undeniably alive. "You died," I whispered. "I felt you die." "I did die." Vera's voice was hollow, scraped raw by years of horror. My heart stopped for 4 minutes, long enough for the bond between us to sever, long enough for you to believe I was gone. Then they brought me back. Madame Sable circled us both, her dark magic casting writhing shadows. Blood magic is a marvelous thing. We can bind a life force to our will, make the dead dance to our tune. Vera has been our most valuable asset for 15 years. "Every assassination attempt on Kieran," my mother continued, and I heard the self-loathing in every word. "Every ambush, every poisoning, every trap. I planned them all. They made me. If I refused, they'd—" She closed her eyes. "They have ways of making death seem like mercy." The silver chains burned my wrists, but the pain was nothing compared to this revelation. "The night you found Kieran in the woods," Vera said, "that wasn't chance. I led you there. The council wanted him to form an attachment, something they could exploit later. A bonded Sentinel King pair is nearly unstoppable, unless you can use one against the other." "You saved his life so they could kill him later," I said numbly. "I saved his life because I knew you could do what I couldn't." My mother's eyes blazed with sudden, fierce pride. "I knew that 8-year-old girl would grow into something they couldn't control. I just had to keep you alive long enough." Madame Sable laughed, cold and cruel. "How touching. Unfortunately, your daughter is about to become a weapon against the Alpha King. We'll drain her sentinel power, use it to break through his defenses, and take his ancient bloodline for ourselves. And Vera?" She smiled. "You're going to help? Or we'll make you kill her yourself." My mother's face crumpled. "I'm sorry, Mira. I tried to fight them, but they own me now, body and soul." Through the sentinel bond, I felt Kieran's rage burning like a distant star. He was coming. I just had to survive long enough. But as I looked at my mother, broken, enslaved, forced to betray everything she'd once stood for, something shifted in my mind. "Promise me, no matter what happens, you'll protect him, even from me." The words echoed across 15 years, my mother's last coherent message before she'd used forbidden memory magic to hide my identity, not just protect him, but even from me. She'd known. She'd known the council would resurrect her, would bind her, would force her to become their weapon, and she'd prepared for it anyway. The pendant hadn't just been suppressing my power, it had been storing it, charging it, building 15 years of sentinel energy into a battery with one specific purpose: to break blood magic bonds. "Mom," I said quietly, "do you remember what you taught me? When I was little, before everything?" Vera's eyes flickered with confusion and pain. "Mira, you said love was the strongest magic, stronger than blood, stronger than death, stronger than anything the darkness could create." I smiled through my tears. "You taught me that." "How precious," Madame Sable sneered. "Love won't save you from—" White light exploded from my body. The silver chains shattered like glass. 15 years of accumulated sentinel power detonated through me all at once, and I understood, truly understood, what I was. Not just a guardian, not just a protector, a living embodiment of the moon goddess's will, forged in childhood innocence and tempered by suffering. "You wanted my power?" I said, my voice resonating with divine authority. "Here it is." Madame Sable stumbled back, her dark magic recoiling from the brilliance. The other council members scattered, but I wasn't focused on them. I was focused on my mother. I crossed to her in 3 strides, ignoring the council's panicked shouts. Vera stood frozen, tears streaming down her face as I placed my hand on her chest, right over her heart, where the blood magic had its deepest hooks. "You taught me that love is the strongest magic, Mom," I said softly. "Watch." Sentinel power poured through my palm like molten silver. I felt the blood magic bonds, vile, twisted things that had wrapped around Vera's soul like parasitic vines. They fought back, tried to corrupt my power, turn it dark, but they couldn't. Because this magic had been forged by a child's love for a dying wolf, by a mother's sacrifice for her daughter, by 15 years of suffering that never broke my spirit. The blood magic bonds shattered. Vera collapsed into my arms, gasping like she'd been drowning, and finally broke the surface. "Free," she whispered. "Oh gods, I'm free!" "Impossible!" Madame Sable's scream was fury incarnate. That magic was unbreakable. The dungeon wall exploded inward. Kieran Thorne stepped through the rubble, and he wasn't just an Alpha King anymore. He was the ancient bloodline manifest, power rolling off him in visible waves, his eyes blazing pure gold, his very presence making the stone walls tremble. Every wolf in the room felt it, the primal urge to submit to something older and greater than themselves. "You took my sentinel," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Bad decision." The Shadow Council attacked as one, but they were fighting something beyond their understanding. Kieran moved like liquid death, his ancient bloodline power crushing their dark magic like tissue paper. Where his claws struck, council wolves fell and didn't rise. I settled my mother gently against the wall and joined him. Together, we were unstoppable. The sentinel bonds sang between us. I knew where he'd strike before he moved. He defended my openings without looking. We flowed like water around each other. White light and golden power intertwined, creating something the council had never faced before. A truly bonded Sentinel King pair. Madame Sable tried to run. I caught her by the throat, slammed her against the ritual circle she'd prepared for my death. "You wanted to drain my power?" I said. "Let me show you what real sentinel magic looks like." She screamed as white light poured into her, not draining but purging. Every piece of dark magic she'd accumulated over decades, every blood bond she'd forged, every corrupt spell, I burned it all away. The council leader who'd terrorized the werewolf world for 20 years dissolved into ash, her final scream echoing off stone walls. The remaining council members surrendered immediately. Kieran stood in the center of the carnage, his alpha power radiating outward. "The Shadow Council is finished. Any wolf who served them willingly will answer to me. Any who were coerced..." His eyes found my mother. "They're free." Warriors flooded into the dungeon. Royal pack reinforcements, along with wolves from other packs who'd been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge the council's reign. Marcus appeared, supporting an emaciated woman who looked like she hadn't seen sunlight in years. "My sister," he said, his voice breaking. "They kept her in the eastern cells. She's alive." Kieran's expression was hard. "You betrayed your king, Marcus." "I know." Marcus dropped to his knees. "I'll accept whatever judgment you decree. You'll spend the rest of your life earning back the trust you destroyed," Kieran said. "Starting now. Help rebuild what the council tore down." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a chance. Over the next hour, we discovered the full scope of the council's corruption. 24 alphas had been working with them, their packs held hostage through blood magic or blackmail. With Madame Sable dead and her magic purged, those bonds broke. The freed alphas executed their former puppet masters on the spot. My mother found me as I stood in the ruins of the ritual circle, exhaustion finally catching up. "You broke 15 years of blood magic," she said quietly. "I didn't think it was possible. You made it possible. Everything you did, hiding me, forging the bond, even becoming their weapon, It was all to prepare me for this moment. I took her scarred hand. You never stopped protecting him or me. I'm so sorry for what they made me do. You survived. That's what matters. I squeezed her hand. Now help us make sure it never happens again. Mira Collins, the greatest sentinel of her generation, nodded. It would be my honor. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of the Royal Pack Fortress, watching the sun rise over territories that were finally, truly free. The coronation was today, not just for Kieran, who'd always been Alpha King, but for me, the Sentinel Luna, equal partner, not subordinate, guardian and guide. Behind me, Kieran approached, wrapping his arms around my waist. Through the bond, I felt his contentment, his pride, and beneath it all, a love so profound it still took my breath away. Nervous? He murmured against my ear. Terrified, I admitted. I'm 23 years old. 3 months ago, I was an Omega healer. Now I'm supposed to help rule the werewolf world? You already saved it. Ruling should be easy. I laughed, leaning back against his solid warmth. Below, packs were gathering from across North America. Allies, former enemies, wolves who'd been freed from the Council's grip. They were here to witness a new era. My mother appeared in the doorway, looking healthier than I'd ever seen her. The scars remained, but the haunted look had faded. She served as our chief advisor now, her knowledge of the Council's network invaluable in rooting out remaining corruption. They're ready for you, Vera said. Kieran took my hand as we walked through the fortress. Warriors bowed as we passed, not with fear but with genuine respect. Children ran past, laughing and safe. This was what my mother had fought for, what she'd died and been resurrected for. The Great Hall was packed with thousands of wolves. Every major alpha in North America stood in attendance, along with representatives from European and Asian packs. The werewolf world was watching. Elder Thompson, brought from Steel Pack to oversee the ceremony, stepped forward with 2 crowns. One was the ancient crown of the Alpha King, passed down through Kieran's bloodline. The other was newly forged, silver and white gold intertwined, set with moonstones that glowed with their own light. Alpha King Kieran Thorne, Thompson's voice carried through the hall. You have led our people through darkness and brought us into light. Do you swear to rule with justice and strength? I swear, Kieran said, his voice steady. And do you accept Mira Collins, Sentinel Luna, as your equal partner in leadership? Kieran turned to me, golden eyes blazing with pride. A little girl fed a dying wolf for 7 days. She asked for nothing in return. That's the day I learned what true strength looks like. Yes, I accept her as my equal. Thompson placed the king's crown on Kieran's head, then turned to me. Mira Collins, Sentinel Luna, guardian of the ancient bloodline. Do you swear to protect our king and our people? To stand as a beacon of justice and compassion? I thought of that 8-year-old girl, starving herself to save a dying wolf. I thought of my mother, enduring 15 years of enslavement to protect what she loved. I thought of every moment that had led to this one. I swear, I said clearly. The Sentinel Luna's crown settled on my head, cool and perfect. White light blazed from my skin, and the crescent moon mark on my forehead, permanent since my awakening, glowed brilliantly. Then rise, Thompson declared, and rule together. The hall erupted in cheers that shook the rafters. Kieran pulled me close, his forehead touching mine. Through the bond, I felt everything he couldn't say in front of thousands of witnesses, his love, his gratitude, his absolute certainty that we could face anything together. And that wolf grew up to be a king who kept his promise, I whispered, completing the thought I'd started months ago. He came back for her. Always, Kieran murmured. I will always come back for you. As we turned to address the assembled packs, I felt it, the tiny flutter of life growing inside me, too new for anyone else to detect. But Kieran knew. Of course he knew. The bond told him everything. His hand found mine, squeezing gently. A secret shared between Sentinel and King. The ancient bloodline and Sentinel legacy would continue. A child born of love and sacrifice who would grow up in a world where the Shadow Council was a cautionary tale, not a present threat. The little girl who'd fed a dying wolf for 7 days didn't just change one life, she changed the entire werewolf world. And as I stood beside Kieran, my mother watching with tears of joy, surrounded by people I'd fought to protect, I finally understood what my 8-year-old self had instinctively known. True strength wasn't about power or rank or bloodlines. It was about choosing to love, even when the world gave you every reason not to. It was about keeping promises, no matter the cost. It was about a child who saw a dying wolf and decided he was worth saving. Everything else followed from that single moment of grace. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's entirely free. It helps us know you're entertained and following.